In October last year alone, Russia lost up to 25,000 soldiers. They didn't just push the Russians back, they trapped them. Ukraine has got a balancing act. Zelenskyy is placing innovators in the most critical decision-making roles in his government. Russia transitioned to a bizarre and terrifying new tactic. Welcome to Battle Plans Exposed. I'm Philip Ingram, and a very happy new year to you all. Now, 2026 is set to be a massive year for the war in Ukraine. The stakes could not be higher. For Ukraine, national survival. For Vladimir Putin, restoring Russia as a great power by dominating Eurasia. Putin has declared 2026 as the year of unity of the peoples of Russia. But Ukraine has other plans. A huge €90 billion funding injection from Europe, dynamic new tactics on the battlefield, and a political reshuffle in Kyiv are set to keep Ukraine in the fight. This year is significant for the Kremlin. February will mark 4 years of what was supposed to be, as I call it, a 10-day special military operation. Crucially, this war is now longer than Russia's Great Patriotic War in 1941, the very conflict Putin uses to define Russian identity. The gravity of this milestone cannot be overstated. Despite a generous offer from Donald Trump to freeze the front lines, Putin has doubled down. He believes he has the might to make a breakthrough in the Donbas. But as we look at the maps, specifically around the fortresses of Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, that belief may prove his fatal move. Join me in this episode as we look at some of the key battles, but first, let's take a look at what's been happening on the front lines. This first shows a Russian soldier being hampered by the fibre optic cables that there are across the battlefields. This is showing the real depth and concentration of fibre optically controlled drones that are dominating the battlefield today. Next, we have the Russians on horseback. Now, horseback in the battlefield is nothing new. UK forces in Bosnia use mules and horses, but it shows the dire state of the Russian logistics support that they're needing it on this modern battlefield. And of course, the Ukrainians don't want to kill the horses. They spook them before attacking the troops that are using them to move troops forward and logistics forward. And the next we see the new anti-drone capability, wires. This is a Shahed drone hitting normal wires, electricity or telephone wires, and detonating before it crashes into the ground. And speaking of Shahed drones, the Russians have recognised that the Ukrainians are using helicopters to shoot their Shahed drones down, so have taped an anti-aircraft missile to the top of a Shahed drone, which they can potentially use to try and shoot the Ukrainian, or certainly threaten Ukrainian helicopters. This shows how technology is being adapted and advanced rapidly as the situation in the battle space adapts rapidly. And in this very graphic video, this is the Russians trying to infiltrate into Kupiansk through a pipeline, but the Ukrainians have identified them, and you can see with thermal imagery an attack killing up to 40 of them. While the world's eyes are on the Donbas, something truly outstanding by Ukraine has been unfolding in the north, the fight for Kupiansk. If Pokrovsk has been about sheer mass, Kupiansk has become a war of information. For months, the Kremlin had been desperate to take this city as a New Year's trophy. The single most important feature of the city is the Kupiansk-Vozlovsky railway junction. This is one of the largest rail hubs in eastern Ukraine, connecting Russia's Belgorod region directly to the Donbas. Capturing this hub would allow Putin to move fuel, heavy armour and ammunition via rail when it gets repaired directly to the fight. The Russian plan is clear: push Ukraine forces to the west bank of the Oskil River to create a buffer zone that protects Luhansk from Ukrainian artillery, and then to use Kupiansk as a springboard for a renewed assault on Kharkiv. In late November 2025, Putin even went as far to claim the city had fallen, reportedly handing out medals to commanders, including Colonel General Kozlovlev, for its liberation, who became a hero of the Russian Federation, given the medal by Putin himself. But as we've so often seen in this war, the Russian claims and the reality on the ground are two very different things. Throughout the autumn and winter in 2025, Russia transitioned to a bizarre and terrifying new tactic, the pipeline offensive. Using decommissioned underground gas pipelines, Russian infiltration units equipped with electric scooters and specifically designed wheeled benches maneuvered through the darkness to bypass Ukrainian drone surveillance and minefields. They weren't just attacking the city, they were trying to emerge from within it. In mid-December, the situation reached breaking point. Russian groups had managed to establish a foothold in the Yevlevny residential area, and for a moment it looked like the 10-day operation might finally claim a major rail hub. However, Ukraine's 7th Rapid Response Corps and 77th Airborne launched a surgical counteroffensive. They didn't just push the Russians back, they trapped them. And by December the 12th, the same day President Zelenskyy made a high-profile visit to the city, Ukrainian forces had encircled these infiltration groups, cutting off the reinforcement routes and clearing the northern districts building by building. Zelenskyy very boldly captured a selfie video outside the city to prove it was nonsense from Russia to claim it had been taken. Russia then blew up the sign in the background to claim that the video was a fake. Kupiansk remains firmly under the Ukrainian flag. Kupiansk is now a clean-up operation for Ukraine, with trapped Russian soldiers, about 100 of them, being cleared building by building and room by room. Colonel General Sergei Kozlovlev has disappeared, but we don't know if he's taken up window cleaning as a new role, the traditional out for most Russians who let Putin down. But the threat is far from over. Intelligence suggests the Kremlin has set a new hard deadline of February 2026, and Kupiansk is a battle of attrition, intelligence and tactics, where the meat grinder has met the tunnel rat, and the outcome will decide the fate of northeastern Ukraine this spring. But it's not just Kupiansk we need to take a look at. Let's look at Pokrovsk. A part of the war zone where Ukraine stops up to 30 Russian attacks a day. An area where Russian losses are staggering. According to the Institute for the Study of War, in October last year alone, after switching to wave-like small infantry assaults, Russia lost up to 25,000 soldiers, advancing by approximately 30 square kilometres in the area of Pokrovsk, and that's this whole area, not just the city. Across 2 years of combat, Putin has lost 5 divisions of armoured vehicles and tanks in this area. That's more than 1,000 armoured vehicles and over 500 tanks, according to the ISW. What's more, heavy armour power on the front line has shifted the other way, thanks to one of the most significant reinforcements of Ukraine's armoured corps since the war began. After a complex logistical operation, Australia completed its delivery of 49 M1A1 Abrams tanks, fitted with additional anti-drone protection. These were quickly deployed in the Pokrovsk sector of eastern Ukraine. Their impact was immediate. Their 120mm cannons provided much-needed firepower for counterattacks by suppressing Russian defensive positions. They drew enemy fire and attention to allow infantry to manoeuvre and push back Russian units south of the key railway line to stabilise the front line in the northern industrial districts of Pokrovsk. Unfortunately, one tank was lost due to Russian FPV drones, but it completed its mission and saved the crew's lives. Ukrainian forces recently advanced in the Pokrovsk direction. Geolocated footage published on the 28th of December 2025 and again on the 4th of January 2026 indicates that Ukrainian forces recently advanced in the Rodinetsk, north of Pokrovsk area. So if Kupiansk is a war of tunnels and infiltration, then Pokrovsk is the grinding attritional battle that epitomizes the raw conflict in the Donbas. This is where Putin truly believes he can achieve his breakthrough. Pokrovsk isn't just a city, it was a critical logistics hub for the entire Ukrainian defense in Donetsk. However, it has become a psychological goal for the Russians. The Russian strategy here was a familiar, brutal one. Masked frontal assaults, relentless artillery barrages, and then the infamous meat grinder tactics we saw earlier, as happened in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. For Ukraine, holding this line is non-negotiable whilst they can cause the Russians so much pain. They're leveraging their new €90 billion European aid package, particularly the influx of advanced long-range precision artillery and tactical ballistic missiles. These systems are allowing Ukrainian forces to strike Russian troop concentrations and logistic depots and command centres far behind the front lines with unprecedented accuracy. This is designed to disrupt the very mass and momentum Russia relies on for its breakthroughs. We're seeing more reports of fuel and ammo dumps exploding deep in Russian-held territory, directly impacting their ability to sustain attacks on Pokrovsk. Furthermore, Ukrainian forces are employing a highly effective mobile defence instead of rigid static lines. They're utilising smaller, highly agile units equipped with anti-tank guided missiles, or ATGMs, and advanced drones to ambush Russian advances, inflicting heavy casualties and then withdrawing to prepared secondary positions. This makes it incredibly difficult for Russian forces to consolidate any gains, forcing them to fight for every metre of rubble, every building, every window, every doorway, every centimetre. The battle for Pokrovsk is not just about territory, it's about logistics versus attrition. Can Ukraine's improved long-range capabilities, mobile defence tactics and support from NATO allies and other allies like Australia wear down Russian forces faster than Moscow can throw men and material into the grinder? The answer will directly influence the viability of Ukraine's defence in the entire Donbas region in 2026. However, we need to be careful, because even I, in Battle Plans Exposed, was suggesting that we expected Pokrovsk to fall in 2025. Ukraine has got a balancing act. They're balancing whether it is worth their investment to keep Pokrovsk open, if they can still supply it logistically, if they can still get casualties out, if they can still rotate troops through, and it's still worth them sustaining the capability in there. And that worth will be measured against the cost they're putting against the Russians. I thought the Ukrainians had got to that tipping point. They clearly haven't. So where will Ukraine push out to next if the Donbas falls? Well, this is something that, when we see the situation develop in Pokrovsk and we see what's happening up in Kupiansk, we'll make a decision and bring this to you in Battle Plans Exposed. So as we record this, the politics inside Ukraine is changing, and it's very interesting. Let's have a look. Zelenskyy remains at the top. Almost 4 years of war. He's aged, and aged a lot. He's under pressure from the United States. He's under pressure domestically because of accusations of corruption from his right-hand man. General Kyrylo Budanov, he was the head of the HUR or GUR. And if you want to know why I refer to as both, G and H in Ukrainian can translate either way. So both are correct, and they're referred to as both. Now just 40 years old, he was heading up one of the most successful military intelligence organizations, but he's now been appointed President Zelenskyy's new chief of staff, replacing Andrei Yermak, who resigned in November after the corruption allegations. The corruption allegations were disrupting relations with the United States and causing issues across Ukraine. Budanov has led the military intelligence agency, as I said, the GUR or HUR, since 2020. And at 40, he is one of Ukraine's most recognisable and popular wartime figures, known for being the architect of many successful operations targeting Russian military assets, as well as for his independent and enigmatic personality. He is trained in the United States and has a very strong working relationship with the CIA and with the US intelligence community. And when he was injured, he went and recovered in hospital. And I think it was Walter Reed Hospital in the United States. He's a friend of the United States and knows how to deal with them, not just militarily, not just intelligence officer to intelligence officer, but also politically, which will be critical with his relationship with Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy and Budanov get on very well. Budanov will be replaced in the HUR by the Foreign Intelligence Service head, Ole Ivashenko. The next intelligence agency, the SBU's head, Vasyl Malyuk, has agreed to resign as the head of Ukraine's security service and a move to a new role heading a wider sabotage and SOE type operations organisation still within the SBU, but it's building on his very successful Operation Spider's Web, that web of drones that attacked Russian strategic airfields from the backs of trucks. That was so successful, and everyone sat up and recognised that Zelenskyy had a full hand of cards when Donald Trump was accusing him of having no cards whatsoever in the ambush in the Oval Office, and the cards were all held by this man and played beautifully. After a bit of resistance, Malyuk ultimately agreed to the move, and General Yevlev Kamera of the Alpha Group is being considered as the interim chief of the SBU. But Zelenskyy's team is eyeing other potential candidates, so this is an ongoing set of moves. And within that, he's brought in a new Minister of Defense, and this is Fedorov. And Fedorov is, again, in his 30s, a very young Minister of Defense. But this restructuring reflects President Zelenskyy's strategic pivot towards a technology-first defense. Fedorov is the architect behind a lot of the drone defenses, behind a lot of the adaptations that are going on with drones, and the way the front line is being dominated by them. So that's it for Battle Plans Exposed today. Join us for the year ahead. It's sure to be a bumpy ride. But thank you for watching this episode of Battle Plans Exposed. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any content. Like and share on your networks. And of course, if you've got any comments or ideas, please put them in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. Thank you. Goodbye.